Just starting at the back door, you can see right here is that's a pepper plant. These are volunteer sunflowers that we tried to save. Maybe a couple will. And up here, all of our bird feeders. A hummingbird feeder. They're usually full of birds, except when I'm out here. And here's the tomato plants that will go in this afternoon. And Gary got some special kinds of peppers, but they haven't sprouted yet. And then we have all of our barbecue stuff and his woodworking stuff that we have to deal with. And then just to give you an idea, we'll go around the corner. And this all has to be dealt with. I put down the cardboard to stop the weeds, but the cardboard didn't disintegrate enough to just stir it in. So I got to figure out what I'm doing. And then I still have some more hay, or straw rather, left over from last year that I can mulch with as soon as I get to it. And you see these little purple flowers, aren't they beautiful? I pulled the bulbs up from across the street when they were using the tractor to level out the ground. I just saw pretty plants and went over and snagged the bulbs. And here's our trellis, which will have green beans. Not the big thing on, not that thing over there, but this right here is the trellis for the green beans. And I'll be planting those in a day or two. And then that big trellis in the back, we're going to put out for someone to pick up if they want it. Now here around to the side, last night I put my tomato, this is the Juliet tomato, out, and there was too much wind and it knocked it over in the pot. It fell. The pot was upright, but the plant was down. So I picked it up right quick and came out and planted it. There's about 3 or 4 inches of the stem down in the soil. And after I get these other 2 planted today, then I'll be able to put these tomato cages up, and I secure them together. I just tie all 3 of them together, and that seems to give enough stability for the 3 plants. This is bed number 4, and we did that so Gary and I would know about what bed we were talking about. So this has been the last of the 4 that I have really worked on at all. Last year we had some tomatoes in it, but they didn't have much time before the snow came. So anyway, there'll be radishes in this and a few other plants within a day or 2. These are peas that I planted thinking I had more cold days, and now that it's warmed up, they've started growing up, so I'm not sure what's happening. And this is bed 3, and this is a flower bed and bulbs and things like that, because if you look up here, you see that pipe there, the gutter, that rain gutter spills right down onto this, and who knows what they put on the roof for mold control and so on. So I didn't want any food plants in this particular bed. So there's gladiolas and all kinds of other wonderful plants. You can see the alliums have just recently come into bloom, and they are so beautiful. Just love them. Now these pots here are strawberries that were the runners for the ones in bed 1, which you'll see in a few minutes. But these are the babies, so they're fresher plants than the ones down the row. And as you can see, some of them have quite a few blossoms. One of them has some berries that look like they're probably going to work pretty well. Now these 3 pots, I tried an experiment. I put coffee grounds. You can even see the coffee grounds. I put coffee grounds on them, not realizing that's just way too acid. So I'm afraid I've killed off a couple of pots, but that's okay. We live and we learn, and I'm just experimenting, so that's what's happening. Now, both down here, below the pots, and in the back, you will see that's arugula, and that's what we eat for salads fairly often. And my husband really loves it. It's a little tough for me and a little spicy for me too, but I eat a little bit of it. But it's all volunteer. So we didn't plant any in the beds or anything because we don't need it. We got super abundant stuff here. Now this bed too, you see I have the posts up, and what's going to happen with them is that's going to hold the net. I'm tired of those cabbage moths coming around and planting their eggs, and then my greens disappear. So that's what's in the process right now. I need Gary to help me get that up. It takes two people, one to hold and one to do whatever. But because we had a really, really hot streak a few weeks ago, all the current chard bolted. So when you see this going on, it's over. Can't do anything about this. All we're going to do with this is harvest the last set of leaves, and if it's not too bitter, we will eat it. In the meantime, I did start some other chard, and it was actually out of the same envelope of seeds, so it'll look similar to this one's right here. And I see it's kind of dry here. So we probably ought to do a little watering today. Now on the side of the bed here, this is an interesting plant. You see the little heart-shaped leaves? They're really pretty. But they are a weed, and they're very invasive, and you never know where they're going to develop. They could be in the walkways, they could be inside the boxes, they could be growing outside the boxes like this, and so on. So it's a challenge to keep ahead of them, and it's also a challenge to make yourself pick them when the beautiful little pink, kind of pink purple flowers come out. They're just gorgeous. So now below this bed too is ferns. These were here when we moved in, and we do our best to keep them cut back a little bit so it doesn't interfere too much in the pathway. And to our left here is our rose garden. A small one that's red, a larger one that's red, and this one will make long stem red roses that are 3-4 feet long, tall, I guess it is. And then this is my favorite rose. It was here when we moved here, and it is highly scented. When the roses are in bloom, in full bloom, oh man, the scent is just heavenly. None of the other roses have quite that much scent, so this yellow rose is the one that carries the day. Here's another tiny, tiny, tiny little rose, if you see it. Down here. That's one of those miniature tiny white roses that they give you in a little pot for Mother's Day. And I just planted it to see what it would do, and it's thrived. And next to this last rose is our pineapple sage. It's coming back from last year. It was covered with snow, but it's back. Okay, now let's come back to the beds. Here's the other side of the chard bed. And here is my latest sign. I've never been a person to put signs in the garden, but okay, I can't do that without leaning over. But I put this bloom where you're planted because I thought it was cute and I thought I'd try it out. Now you see how upright and staunch these are the ones that are replacements of the original ones. They have replaced themselves over the years. Now these are tri-star, and they make a star looking tiny fruit which I don't particularly care for. It's sweet, but it's so tiny it's almost useless. And I'm thinking if we were going to stay here, I would pull all these out and plant a different kind. But hey, you know, you do what you can. Now, I don't have much storage space for anything on this property, so things get to go where they go. I've got the garden compost and all that kind of thing under this protective thing because it was raining and I didn't want it to get inside the partially open bags, and it did a good job. Now, I can thank a bird for this little yellow patch here. That is just so cool. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Can you see the butterfly? The cabbage moth? No, he's gone now. Anyway, point is that a bird planted those. I wouldn't plant that kind of flower in my in my strawberry bed. So, and here's more of what we're storing currently. Probably all of this will go out front on the road to be given away to whoever wants it. Here's another one of our volunteer arugulas. These 3 beds I'm going to move out to front. This set of pipes was to set up protective areas on a lot of my beds, but now that we're moving, I'm just going to put it out and put it on Craigslist for somebody else. Now, we have a pathway from our backyard that we often carry things back and forth, but the paving stones are sticking out of the ground. They're not flush with the ground, and it causes all kinds of problems. So I finally bought a wheelbarrow, and we'll turn around here. What I was using was just this dolly here to move things, and that worked for some things, but not everything. Oh, by the way, here is a volunteer tree. Cool, huh? But I'm gonna take it down because if it's allowed to grow up, it's gonna knock down the fence, and the landlord will be mad and he'll blame me. So, And this is a native plant mixed among the hostas. It's a bleeding heart, but it is a woodland plant that is native here to Oregon and Washington. I think it's really, really beautiful. I like the fernish effect, and when the blossoms are fresh, they're so beautiful. And here's my stake pile, which I'm dealing with slowly. And we have some extra chairs, which will probably go to some of our kids. And then this is a pile that I have to be very careful to deal with. It's all the different kinds of sprays and fertilizers and a few tools and things like this that I have to figure out exactly how to organize. And that's my task this week, is to get this whole backyard set up. Now, here's an interesting thing. You see this tool right here? When I took Jessie's class, she was talking about a hori-hori. Well, I happened to stumble on this in a sale in a hardware store, and I thought, oh wow, I bet I can use that. And look, it even has the inch marks on it, and has a cutting side and a sawing side, which I've found very handy so far. Also, of note here is I found this little hand rake. It's not very long, but when you have the beds like we have, I can just, just break the bed standing up over the bed, and I don't have to deal with the big long handle. So that has worked marvelously. Now, there's other things I wanted to mention here. Some of the products here I have picked up off Craigslist. They are half used. This box of bone meal is half full. But bone meal, if it's a year old, is fine, or if it's 5 years old, it's fine. It's not going anywhere, and it's still useful in the garden. It didn't cost me anything. I got it free on Craigslist. Here's another tool that I've just picked up recently. a short-handled small shovel. And I did that because, same thing, standing up over these beds, it's pretty easy to lean over and reach anything within one of the beds with the shovel instead of having to deal with a long handle behind you. Now this is my trouble pile. I gotta figure out what to do with that. And this is an interesting thing. This is my square foot guide. I just took the little paint paddles that you get at the store, and they are 1 foot long. So I just I glued 4 of them together, and now I have a 1 foot guide. So if you look at the square foot gardener book, it's going to say, oh, in 1 foot you can put 1 tomato, you can put 3 lettuces, you can put 16 radishes. I don't know what the numbers are. But the point is that with that little guide, I have my space marked out. I don't have to put any particular string or cross pieces or nothing. Also up here I have a tool, a reaching tool, which as you get older and you don't want to bend over so much, you can take this reaching tool and you can get whatever it is you need down there on the ground, as long as it isn't real heavy. Or, there you go. Here's a good example. So that comes in handy out here in the garden occasionally. So I like having that around. Then, this camera right here is an attempt to look at the birds more. I wanted a way to photograph birds, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a camera, and my husband found this for like 10 bucks. It's remote controlled from your phone, and you can screen print or screenshot on your phone whatever it's seeing, and the resolution is fairly decent. So I have some pretty interesting bird shots. So that brings us back around to the back door again. Now, when you go out the back door, here is this wonderful new umbrella. The one we had caught in a terrible windstorm, picked it up, bent it over, beat it up. Oh my goodness. We had no idea that kind of storm was gonna be there and do that. So we lost that umbrella. But we got this one on a sale. And we have birds that visit regularly, and the interesting part of these is the birds don't particularly like this millet, and I don't know why. I mean, they'll eat around it. Okay, now with my green stalk came a bag of worm compost. So I'll be using that when I put up my green stalk, and I might use a little bit of it in some of the other beds, but basically it's for the green stalk. This chicken fertilizer is another bag of fertilizer that I got off of Craigslist for free. This garden soil I bought, and you have to read the bag. This is not garden soil. This is garden soil, but you have to mix it with dirt. Okay, so what I'm planning to do with this particular garden soil is it goes out here to these beds, and these beds are going to be moved up front, in the front of the house. So I'm going to take all the dirt out of there and put it in the wheelbarrow, and then mix it up with this, about 1/4 of a bag, and that'll be a good ratio for fresh soil for those to start in the front. Okay, we're going to turn back around here, and this is my prized blueberry bush. And later on, when it starts really making blueberries and they start turning blue and the birds start paying attention, then I have to cover it with bird net or put it in a protected space made out of bird net, which is what I've done mostly. So there's some kinds of blueberries that you can get that don't need 2 kinds to be able to pollinate. And this one, I understand, will give me lots and lots of fruit for a while, but then if I got another one, then I would have larger fruit. So when we move, I may give this to my daughters and not try to move it across the country, because where we're going is going to have lots of blueberries. Anyway, it'll be nice for now. Here's some more of the little flowers that I love so much. Forget-me-nots. And this is my collection of ever-growing green onions. I didn't use them all up last year, and they came back and after the snow and sprouted up, and now I see some of them are gonna give us a show here in a little bit. And now this is oregano, and oh man, I wish you could smell it. Oh, smell, oh my goodness, that is just so wonderful. And this is more forget-me-nots, and these other ones are not planted yet, but they will have flowers in them soon. Or vegetables. I'm thinking about growing all different kinds of herbs, since I have a dehydrator and I can dry them. These also are not planted. The bird bath is a new addition. This was an interesting story, how we got this. We've been on the lookout for bird baths, but you're talking mega money. And we just made a makeshift one, and it served our purpose for a while. Can you see the bee? See the bee? He comes down for a drink. The other day I saw a bee swimming like crazy. He couldn't get up on the side, so I gave him a leaf to help get him back up. So the bees love it, the birds love it, the cats love it. The cats come and they put their bottom feet on this box at the bottom and then stand up, reach over and drink and drink and drink like they've never had a drink before. So this is one of 3 rose cuttings that I made, and I'm saying 3 because this was an experiment. I'd never done anything like this before. I planted 3 in the pot, and only 1 caught on and survived and is doing well, and duh. Wow. So I guess I'm not so great. I score 33% at propagation, so I guess I'll have to practice that a little more. Here's my new wheelbarrow. Got it at Lowe's. It came fully assembled. They even put it in the car for me. So, now you've had my tour, and the next time we do a tour, things will look very different. It'll be all cleaned up and organized. It'll be pictures we can send to our landlord and say, look at how perfectly clean and organized our place is. Thanks for watching.